Well, good afternoon, and let me just say, Dean Agores, I can confidently say that George Mason is gonna miss you in the upcoming years as you begin that next chapter in your journey at William and Mary. So congratulations and thank you for everything you've done. Well, and of course, good afternoon, Patriots. I am so humbled to have the opportunity to address the 2019 graduating class of the College of Science. And let me just say, if we're being honest, you all got gypped. I mean, last year the commencement speaker was an astronaut. And this year you're stuck with me, so I'd ask for your money back. Be that as it may, today marks a really special moment in time for our GMU faculty and staff, for the parents and families that have supported all of you to get to this stage, and of course, most importantly, to you, our graduates. What an incredible class. Over 900 graduates that span nearly every state in this country, not to mention the significant international presence. You know, that's one of the things I loved about Mason. The diversity that exists here is unbelievable. And that diversity continues to increase, and it's not just diversity in the people that we are attracting, but it's diversity in thought, it's diversity in inclusivity. And that's tremendous. You know, as the dean said, I graduated 20 years ago, and I sat where all of you are sitting. And frankly, I don't remember my commencement speaker. So standing on this side today, that gives me a little bit of comfort and perhaps is a blessing. You know, like some of you, I was born just a stone's throw away from here. The son of immigrant parents that came to this country in search of that American dream that so many of us strive for. That's right. At the age of 17, my life really changed. After my high school's first football game of the year, a fight broke out at a nearby park. And I turned and I saw flashes of light. That's what I remember about the moment I was shot. Flashes of light. Time seemed to slow down. People were running and screaming all around me. My white shirt was covered in blood. And my friends who were frantic implored me to lie down. And as I did, my mouth filled with blood and I began to choke. I would later realize that a .38 caliber bullet had ripped a hole in my windpipe and injured my carotid artery. I was bleeding into my airway. That night, my trauma surgeon was Bob Ahmed, and he saved my life by punching a hole in my windpipe, a procedure called a tracheostomy. And Dr. Mukherjee, my vascular surgeon, made an incision on my left leg and took a piece of vein and patched my carotid artery. You know, I spent more than a month in the hospital figuring out the basics, such as how to talk with a paralyzed vocal cord. But long after I recovered, the experience of getting shot stayed with me. And I don't just mean by the shape of the scars on my neck or the sound of my voice. The experience changed the whole course of my life. That moment inspired me to become a trauma surgeon and continues to push me to work at that nexus of medicine, public health, and public policy. You know, over the years, I have a few lessons that I've learned, which I live by, and I thought maybe as all of you begin this next chapter in your journey, some of them may be helpful. The first is that the biggest obstacle to your own success is yourself. You know, when I first got to George Mason, I met with one of the pre-medical advisors, who, in case you're wondering, is no longer here. And this person knew nothing about me, had not seen my transcripts from high school, was not aware of my personal story or my drive. And I was excited. I met with him and I said, you know, I'm going to be going to medical school. And his first response was, everyone walks into my office telling me that they're going to medical school. It's very competitive. I suggest you pick something else. I was pissed. I mean, who in the world is this guy? And how dare he attempt to destroy my hopes and dreams in a split second? Needless to say, it was a conversation that I've never forgotten. And it was a conversation that motivated me to work my tail off to accomplish my goals. But you know, it's a conversation that also led me to people like Professor Donna Fox, who not only encouraged me in her class of cell biology and life in general, but also held me accountable. Mind over matter, maintaining a laser vision that allows you to define your own success. But in order to do that, you have to truly believe in yourself. Otherwise, you are going to cripple your ability to achieve your God-given potential. The second lesson is thinking beyond simply yourself. I get it. I know we all want great jobs and we want to make money. I'm not underestimating the importance of that. But believe me when I tell you that there is no greater gift than the gift of serving others. In fact, it's almost selfish. You know, I was recently taking care of a 17-year-old kid that was shot in the back of the head. He had a devastating traumatic brain injury. And one of the worst parts of my job is having to go and talk to those families. And I went up to the surgical ICU to talk to this kid's mother and to tell her that her child that had left that morning is never coming home again. And as I went up there and I began explaining to her the devastating injury, she began telling me about her son. And she said, you know, he was the first in our family to graduate from high school. You know, in Baltimore, in the African-American community, that's a big deal. He had hopes and dreams of going to college and sitting where all of you are sitting. And those aspirations will never get fulfilled. So our team, the medical team, was obviously devastated. And she looked up and she saw the devastation in our eyes. And she did something that I'll never forget. She walked over and she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, "Are you okay?" Now just imagine this for 1 second. Here is a mother that just lost her child, and she's asking us if we're okay. It's moments like that which restore my faith in humanity, and it's moments like that which underscore the importance of us serving others. And there's many ways to be public servants. Some of you will join our brave men and women of the United States military. Thank you for your service. Some may be part of Teach for America. Some may become clinicians and work in underserved communities, and maybe just some of you will run for public office. For each of you, that service is going to be different, which gets me to my last and final point, which is learning how to tell your own story. You know, for many years, I never realized the power of my own story. I often said, who would care about a guy that was shot in the throat? And it wasn't until I was in fellowship at the University of Pennsylvania where it began to make sense. We had a program where we would bring teenagers from underserved parts of the community, and we would give them a tour of the trauma center, and then I would talk to them about gun violence. And the first time I did this, I was speaking to a group of young 14, 15-year-olds, primarily from the African American community, and I began talking to them, but I hadn't told them my story. And like any other teenagers, they kind of were paying attention, but not really. I then told them and shared my experience as a former victim of gun violence. And in an instance, all of their eyeballs focused on me. It was a reaction that I had never seen before and one that I didn't expect. And I asked them, I said, how many of you in here have either personally or through your families been affected by gun violence in your communities? And nearly every one of them raised their hands. At that moment, I realized that my story transformed me from someone wearing a white coat to someone that could actually relate with the experiences that these kids were having in their communities day in and day out. So if you remember nothing else from today, remember this, that each and every one of you have a story. And that story doesn't have to be as dramatic as being shot in the throat, or it may be even more profound, like the story of Jorge Fernandez Davila, our speaker this afternoon, whose family immigrated from Peru speaking no English in pursuit of that American dream. Being able to tell your story will allow you to develop a narrative that will change the hearts and minds of people from all walks of life, from all around the world. You know, most people don't believe that they can have an impact in today's world. It's why the voter turnout rate is so low. However, I'm here to tell you that not only each of you can have an impact, but you must have an impact. Our country today is facing a political ecosystem that is greatly divided. And regardless of your race, gender, sexual orientation, or political affiliation, bringing us back together as a country begins here and now with you. You all are the next generation of global leaders, and your voice and your leadership is critical in helping us bridge that divide. So when you get up today and walk out of this auditorium, I want you just to ask yourself two things. Number one, why am I here? And number two, how am I going to tell my story? Now, things are not always going to be clear. It's not always going to be rainbows and lollipops. Life will intervene. But may you have comfort in knowing that you will always make the right decision if you fall back on the values that brought you here today. You know, recently a mentor of mine, Mike Hemphill, said to a group of us, we're in such a rush to get to our destination that we forget about the journey. Graduates, the journey is the destination. May God bless all of you, and congratulations on this tremendous achievement.